Good to see you. Good to see you, my colorist crowd. I really, couldn't resist, but, talk to you a little bit about something that we've been working on for quite some time. And please allow me to give you a little story before, kind of we dive into our demonstration and explanation to what we were doing. Simply because it's very interesting. It's very, I mean, like, I keep constantly learning, what it takes to actually run a software development company. Like I have never done it before. I have an MBA for business, but when I was doing business masters, there was no such a thing as software development companies. They were like, some big companies. And by the way, back then I was thinking I'm going to start a record label, nothing to do with software anyway. So in any case, I had to learn, on the job, and thankfully I have been in this program called Y Combinator that was run by Sam Altman, interestingly enough. And that was really my boot camp where I learned a lot about, what it takes, to run a software business. But things are constantly changing as well, and one has to constantly keep thinking and reinventing. And what we're going now is through this growing pains, like where our user base is now more than, let's 50,000 people. And so that, everything kind of has to now change. The websites have to change, servers, licensing systems, because when we built it, we never really thought that we were going to go as far as that. We kind of thought like, oh, it's going to be maybe a few thousand people maximum. Actually, when I built it, I only wanted to have one customer, one studio. So anyway, so we're there. But what I wanted to tell you a little bit about it is that, problem about anybody running, business, is that usually they're idea people. So for example, for me, like, just this morning, probably from the moment I got up until I, had shower, I probably had 10 ideas. I'm not saying that they were all great ideas. I'm just saying I'm having ideas, right? And just managing all these ideas and everything that kind of happens is a challenge. So I learned very quickly to manage my ideas, like, to really, like, they call this MVP. So what you do is you have a great idea, you make a minimum viable product, you make sure that this minimum viable product actually sticks, and then you go and make a real product out of it, which is the reason why I also started the research group, because this is now where I'm going to be putting all the MVPs. I'm working on an amazing tool for LUT development right now, some more DCTLs and stuff like this. So, the Helmholtz Kohl Rausch effect was part of this MVP, where I just felt like, okay, so, if this is really working, then it's worthwhile putting it in a product as well. So I'm very, very happy, that somebody gave me this advice. Don't just, have an idea and make a product straight away. In any case, one anecdote, sprung to my mind or caught my attention, and I don't remember exactly, what university it was, but it was actually talk about architecture. What they said, I think it was University of Pennsylvania. And what they did is they built a new campus. And as they built a new campus, they ended up arguing forever which way and how exactly they're going to make paths between the buildings, right? And they couldn't agree. One person would say, oh, I said, this is bad, we should make a one, and whatever. Everybody has an opinion, right? Everybody thinks, no, they know better how to do it. So the dean of the university, who happened to be a very smart person, that's not always the case with university deans, but in this case, it was a smart person. What he said, you know what? We're not going to build any paths. First semester, we're just going to leave grass the way it is. And everybody was stunned by it. And then he said, let's just do it. And so they really did it. And after the first semester, after 6 months, he basically took a photograph from above and he said, this is how we're going to make paths. So what happened actually is that students have naturally walked from building to building, choosing the most convenient part to them, and they have left trails between the grass to what is the best way for them to reach the buildings. Nobody had to design some sort of smart paths for them. We as humans, we figured out intuitively ourselves which way to go. And basically, that was the design. That's how the paths were made. And everybody was then convinced this was the most efficient way how to make the pass between the building. And I was thinking, how this is a fantastic, I love this. And like I always felt like, the purpose of any software is to serve its customers, not the other way around, not the customers to serve the software, right? And I thought like, this is perfect. How could I integrate that level of thinking into Colourlab? So this is what I did. So I decided that I'm going to now try to understand, which way would our customers go, right? How could I let our customers walk between the buildings on my new campus and so show me how and what should software do effectively, how we should build this path, how what needs to happen. Okay, so instead of constantly rushing and developing new things, and which we always do, I mean, we're constantly improving the neural network and we're constantly training some new stuff and we're constantly working on improvements. I have said, okay, let's stop now just, constantly trying to release new versions and let's see how, and what is really happening. So the first thing I did is I became very active on our email technical support side. And I really, answered thousands of technical support emails simply because I wanted to see what are the problems that people have. What is the issue? What is the technical issues? What's the issues with usage? Then what I did when people download trial, I would send them a very short personal email and say, hey, I understand you downloaded trial, but you didn't decide to buy. Why? What was the problem? And sometimes I would even send them a Zoom link and I would connect with them and have a little talk about it. And I would just understand, hey, what is it that didn't work for you? Okay, was it this? Was it that? And basically, I also allowed enough time to pass, for me to start getting, a real clear idea to what's happening. Another thing I did is then I organized classroom training, like where I basically would sit in a room, with 10, 15 people in New York and in Los Angeles. And I would then basically teach them how to use Colourlab. And then I would see what's problem, what they're struggling with, what they don't understand, what is the questions. I would walk around them and I would see how they use it. What is it that it's not working for them? What's working as well, most importantly, right? So this was another thing. And another thing I did was I would then I went to NAB and we showed this kind of development we're doing, and then also customers were coming, our existing customers were coming and saying to me, hey Dado, this is really annoying, or this is not working, this is working, but this is not good. How could we get this? So I had a lot of interaction with thousands of people, literally with thousands of people, and based on that, I really started getting a very clear idea to what we're doing, well, and what we are not doing so well, what we need to change and what we need to improve. So I certainly, some things, I understood we can improve very quickly. And certain things, it's going to have to be a little bit step back before we get it working. So for example, a lot of you told me this whole licensing and finding my licenses is bad, but, it means also we need to completely change the licensing. So anyway, so a lot of people told me finding the training material is a problem. The support, self-support is a problem. So a lot of these things are happening. We're building all of this stuff. It's not an overnight effort. But in the meantime, what I decided to do is I decided to put together a version of a software that had all that feedback that we knew that we can integrate and make, which is kind of, something that's so obvious. And we made a version 3.4 for DaVinci Resolve. So what we actually also found out is that people, who use DaVinci are completely different than people who use Premiere. They're not the same people. They're not the same type. They don't need the same functionality. And that's a real problem, so we always kind of made our software from our point of view. Hey, we're going to make one software for everybody. Well, it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of small details that, for example, DaVinci user needs that Premiere user doesn't even know what they mean, right? So there is a lot of difference there. So what we are also doing now is we're completely separating versions. So there's going to be a version for DaVinci, there's going to be a version for Premiere, there's going to be a version for Final Cut that are going to be different. Okay, so one of the first things that everybody told me when they first started using it, they said, yeah, the problem is I need to have studio version. I need to have a license. So now for most of you guys in this group, this is probably going like, of course you have to a license for DaVinci. I mean, you're not going to use a free one, but you'll be surprised. Like, that there is about 10-to-1 ratio of people who have a downloaded free version of DaVinci and those who have a licensed version. And many of you have got free version of DaVinci on secondary computers because you have like maybe one license that you use in the main grading suite, but then, you use the free one for preparing or doing all that stuff where Colourlab could be handy. So we figured, okay, we have to make it work for a free version. So that was the number one thing. Number two thing that a lot of you told me, you know what? This fetch and push, right, is really kind of annoying, right? Because sometimes, I first of all, I need to move out of my software in another software. Sometimes this thing doesn't work. Then there is a problem with raw files. And I understand that problem. So I have basically, kind of partnered with Tinman, the best, absolutely, raw media playback engine on the market instead of trying to build our own. And we kind of solved that problem. But still, like, moving in and out is a problem. And you told me the problem as well is that you color manage everything with Arilog C, but I don't work in Arilog C. I work in DaVinci UI gamut. There is a prevalent kind of, probably because it's so convenient and it's built in, people like DaVinci UI gamut. They want to work in that color space. So that's one. Or I work in ACES. I need to color manage in ACES. So this whole fetch and push really doesn't allow that. You can't. You're limited to work with Arilog C, which is my favorite space, but not yours. And I totally get it. Right. So that was the third issue that we had with a lot of people. Then people said to me, I'm creating a multicam. And Colourlab is so useful for multicam because it matches the cameras. It's great. But I can't use it in fetch and push because multicam is not supported. Oh, damn it. Oh, Dado, I have lots of speed changes. But when I move speed changes, the different frame rates look completely different in Colourlab. One looks like this, one looks like that. Oh my God, this is another massive issue, right? So then we have, and I just realized, oh my God, there is all these things and they're fraction. They're basically, like stopping you from really enjoying and using this software correctly. So we figured the best way how to solve it is to have a plugin, which is why we made a plugin. And it was really until I didn't go to company 3. And when I sat down with their colorist and I showed their colorist what, Colourlab does, the first thing they told me, they said, well, we would love to use it, but the first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make it work inside DaVinci Resolve because I don't want to go outside DaVinci. This is the only software I use. I will never. So there was pretty much, they were adamant, if you want to continue talking about it, make it work in DaVinci. So I was like, okay, fine. I get you all. So the plugin on top of it was a solution for that. So we made it first as a pro, but now we figured out, okay, there is a little bit more to the plugin than just what we have at the moment, right? So that was another very, very interesting thing that happened. So altogether, like I kind of figured out, okay, we had a plugin for a while, but not everybody really wanted to go for Pro because what Pro was giving you was all the Look Designer and Grain Labs. And, some of you already had the Look Designer Grain Lab. Some of you didn't really want to have it. It wasn't necessary. You were really going for the core functionality. You just want to have an AI feature. So we figured out, well, we really have to rethink that. And this is why we came up with this concept, which is called, Colourlab for DaVinci Resolve, okay, which I'm basically going to show you today. Now, what is really, really interesting about this application as well is that we took a slightly different kind of approach here. So we have actually released it, but before we run completely into kind of releasing it straight away, we organized a free training course called 3-Day Color Grading Challenge for complete beginners. And what we did there is we basically, had 800 people sign up. I mean, unbelievable. I thought it's going to be maybe 50, 60. No, it was 800 people that signed up who basically went and trained color grading with me from zero, right? I told them no previous, knowledge necessary. And my most important thing was like, okay, are they going to be able to install? It's surprising how difficult it used to be to install Colourlab. Where is the license? What's happening with my server? My server's connecting, this is connecting. My thing is connecting, but this is not connecting. But my thing is connected, but this is not, but my Windows is not the, oh my God. Oh my God. So when I did I remember a classroom in New York, we spent a half a day installing. I was like, why? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that this installing is so complicated, because for me, it was always double click, but not everybody is me, right? So I was like, okay, so what we did now, first thing is when you download the software, you get a PDF with a precise step-by-step guidelines, and we improve the installation process. We improve the licensing system so that it doesn't fail on stupid things, so that basically so we managed to get all 800 people through, except one lady. She had a trash can Mac. Do you guys remember those trash can Macs? She was still working on that Mac, and she told me it's not working. And I was like, how it's not working? And then we realized, man, this hardware is ready for replacement. I know it looks beautiful. You gotta get rid of it. Actually, you might get really some good money, it's gonna look like a great vase or whatever, just guys, it's not for color grading anymore. Just get rid of the trash can, Anyway, so then what we said, it was like, okay, great. And then so we managed to get 800 people through, but then when we finished the training, we also asked them for their opinion and what they thought, what worked, what didn't work, and then we used that last feedback to come to where we are right now. Okay, and we are now ready to go public with this. And basically, I want to share with you all the little improvements that we did, but basically, I want to explain to you what's happening. So when you install the Colourlab or DaVinci Resolve, we call it here Colourlab DVR, right? 3.4 is the number. What is going to happen? The desktop application is going to look exactly the same, right? So it's there. You won't see any difference, except that when you go into look design, it's going to tell you, hey, this is a pro feature. So you won't have the actual look designer, but you're going to have lots of show looks. Show looks are available. They didn't go away. Now, why we did that? Well, first of all, we did it because we wanted to make the application more affordable. That's kind of, a way for to do it. But third, most people, really didn't use so much the look designer here inside. They were mainly using look designer as a plugin. And also a lot of people kind of, that are in this kind of market of give me AI to balance and stuff like this are not necessarily in the market for film emulation, right? If they are, then they can go for pro. So basically, this was a great feature, but not essential feature. So we figured, okay, that's great. If it's not essential, let's not bother with it, right? So then what you're going to get, you're still going to get your little server there installed, that is going to be there. So that hasn't gone away. It will, at one moment with version 4, we will be able to work serverless. But, right now it's there. And then what you do is you get this new plugin, which is called Colourlab AI Creator DVR. It looks exactly the same on the outside, but under the hub, we made some significant changes. All right. So actually, let me go and take my favorite timeline of my Russian Volgas chasing quasi-American police. I don't know exactly what the storyline there, but you kind of get the idea, the gangsters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you normally how simply I set up the node tree and how I grade really fast. So what I would do here is I would then first go and say, okay, this is going to be my IDT. And you can use color space transform for that. And because I'm going to be working in Arilog C, I don't need to do anything here. Then you have your CDL, as always, your manual CDL, right? Where you're going to be doing adjustments. And I'll show you how to do most of them. Then you're going to have your AI node, right? And that's where you're going to put your Colourlab AI creator. You just drop it there. By default, it's going to tell you that it's working from Arilog C to Arilog C. Okay, that's absolutely fine. All right, so then after that, I'm going to go and leave one node for trimming. So sometimes I need to trim post much, rarely, but if I do, it's there. Then I'm going to go and put a showlet node. Okay, And then I'm going to now put, let me put actually ODT node on a timeline, because it's just, it's an ODT. Now, what we did to give you like that same picture kind of quality that you get, so you're not losing any picture quality with this, you just kind of don't have all these features as a presets, as a look designer. We made some LUTs for you. And with the installation, what happens, you get this folder which is called Colourlab LUTs, and one is ODT and one's show LUT. So I'm going to use ODT, and I'm going to use ARI log C ODT output, because that's the one I really like. I'm afraid, no one's ever going to convince me that I should be using that DaVinci ODT. That's kind of not my cup of tea. Anyway, so then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, okay, I want to use a show LUT. And then let's say, for example, I'm going to use this Agfa warm, right? And then because these show LUTs sometimes can be a little bit too much, right? What I do is by default, I make them to be in key output 50%. So because I say like, okay, I do want to show LUT, but I don't want it to kind of overtake my image. So these show LUTs that we made, they are a little bit, like they're a little bit stronger, so that you can kind of, in situations where you need more push, you can do them. But I think by default, you should try to trim them a little bit. Okay. And then what I do is, then I go to my AI node and I say, hey, give me a balance. Okay. So now, like, okay, so there is a couple of things. This balance is much better, but it's still not perfect. We're going to be, funny enough, balancing is a much harder problem for AI to solve than, for example, matching. And let me explain to you why. When I'm matching, I have a ground truth. We call this ground truth, right? So I have a reference that's a definitive. This is my reference. And hey, make these two be same. But when I'm balancing, what's my reference? I don't have one, right? I don't have a reference. I have to come up with an arbitrary value that is going to be that. And so we tried in several ways. We tried to use different arbitrary values for different type of shots. We tried to do this, we tried to do that, but none of them really works so well, right? So what we actually decided to do now is we're going to build a feedback loop. So we'll have a neural network that is going to analyze the grade of balance, and based on its characteristics is going to decide whether it's properly balanced or not. And characteristics are contrast, density, and color, overall balance, temperature and contrast, color temperature and color contrast. Okay. So it will measure these parameters in an image and then be able to decide whether this neutral balance has really succeeded or not. And then, so it will maybe do more than one pass in order to correct itself. So you see, this is the problem. So this is architecturally much more complicated flow, because it just has to go through a loop, like, so one network tells the other network what happens, and they need to communicate between one another. Luckily now, technologically, there is a software development kit for connecting two networks between one another, and we can do this. And when we finish this, it's going to be by far the most advanced neutral balancing algorithm out there. All these algorithms that you see in your phone and in your apps and everything like that, they're trained on a brute force data where somebody has just fed millions of images that are neutrally balanced, and basically based on that knowledge, the system is trying to decide what's best for it. But really, like, to give a feedback is going to be by far the best way how to do it. All right, sorry, I had to rat a little bit, because this is exactly what we're working on at the moment, so it's a little bit fresh for me. All right, so what I did now is I said, okay, great, so I have this look, and also I have my node tree. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and save this as a reference. Okay, so now you see my reference, right, is there. So I have the reference. And now, and this is exactly the workflow I recommend you do. You take one clip, your hero shot, you set your node tree, and you make that hero shot be your reference. Okay, it is because of this problem I just explained to you with balancing. Do not try to use Colourlab as a balancing tool, right? Balance it maybe on a single shot. But what we are more successful with, obviously now that we have a reference, is matched to the reference, not to an arbitrary balance value. So if you say, well, I'm getting a little bit inconsistency result, well, that's because you're balancing. If you have an actual image, we have a great neural network for that. So use that feature. So I'm just trying to understand you, like how to utilize this more, because that was one thing that many users thought like, oh, I'm just going to be pressing auto color button. Well, auto color button has an issue right now because it doesn't really know what is perfect image, right? And it will never probably know correctly until we start doing this feedback loop. All right. So, okay, so what you want to do is you want to always use an actual reference image, reference shot, ideally your actual shot from the timeline. Why? Because the deep characteristics of that image are embedded in the matching process. I can, of course, take any other image, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, and I can do that. But the character of that image and the character of your footage is usually very different. Where about your footage has a similar character, and even though if the shots are different by color exposure and everything else, that character, that DNA of the shot is closer to what you're trying to achieve. So you have to just understand it. Like you could kind of look at an image that you bring in and you say like, well, I want this look, right? But don't use that image for matching everything. Use actual shot from your sequence for matching, because that DNA, that content, that microscopic detail inside your image affects the quality of the match. As simple as that. Okay? So first thing I'll do now is I'm going to go and I'm going to shift click and I will copy everything now to this. Okay, so I will replace this. Okay, great. So what I have now is I have now set the reference, I have set the node tree. And yes, I know that this is not a batch. What we used to do, just place everything batch. I understand. But you know what? It's not really that bad, because all you guys have to do, right? All you have to do is you just have to go and press this match button, right? So you just say, hey, match it. And it's going to do really good job at it because of two reasons. I'm using actual shot from my timeline. I have a shot that has some skin inside. Because guys, if you think about it, what did we use primarily for training of our neural model? Well, we used, not the real data. We used images. Now we use Flux. We used to use Midjourney. We used to use, stable diffusion. Like we can't really use real images. But we always had a person inside. 90 even more percent of the shots have person inside. So the neural network understands the relationship of the skin. And why is skin also important? Because we trained neural model to say, hey, the skin is mid-grade. This is your most important point, right? So don't just go and get a mountain shot as a reference. Use something that has a person and skin inside, because for AI, that's important. That's the anchor point that it's going to use to be able to figure out what's going to have to happen with the contrast and density. Okay? So then I'm going to go and say, okay, let me do the next one. And I'm going to do another match. And you see, this process is super straightforward. Once you have a good looking, reference, you don't really need to worry too much about it. It's going to do a really good job. And I would recommend you just do that. You just go quickly through your sequence, through your scene, and you just do this. And yes, it's not everything going to be perfect. That's absolutely fine. Now watch this. The only thing that you usually need to do, is before you start tweaking and correcting, just use a little gamma on the CDL. That's all I find you need to do. You don't overcomplicate yourself by trying to overmatch things. What it is just that overall density sometimes needs to be a little bit adjusted. That's kind of, the play between the CD. This one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine. Right, maybe this one a little. And that's it. So you see, it took me seconds, to do this. It took me really seconds. Okay, was it completely manual? It wasn't. But now, I didn't use my brain power for anything else. I can now start doing windows. I can start doing trackers. I can start doing all sorts of things. because, I have been just, able to automate at least, one big part of this process. Okay. Now, when we are actually now on talking about now using external references, I want to show you a couple of improvements we made on the plugin side as well. All right, so we have also got, by the way, this match button, but we also have given you, many of you have told me, hey Dado, I don't really wanna like, just have a match or balance. I want to do only white balance. So yes, we have now only white balance as well. Sometimes you don't really want to grade it. Sometimes you just want to get it like, that kind of little balance right. White balance is not going to do anything else. It's just going to go and adjust a little bit color. It's not going to try to fix your contrast for you, right? Okay, so that's, for example, another thing. And yes, undo works as well. And then we made some more improvements. And the main improvements are here in the select reference window. So we build this window new because you told us when you start working with this, what happens, you end up with lots of references from different projects, from different things, and you just want to have a better way how to organize them. Okay, so let me show you. So first thing you have here, on the left top, you can sort your references by date or simply by just one clicking by name. So when you see now it says name, right? And now it's date. And then you have here ascending arrow, descending arrow, right? So basically, so you see how I can just go like ascending, descending. So I can now basically, change them to how I can actually get these images, sorted in and out. Okay, so that's number one. So it's much easier now to organize them. We separated two tabs. So you have a tab which is basically a tab that we supplied the images with, and then we have a tab which is basically a tab that is images that you have imported. Okay, so this is also another tab. Okay, so the another thing we introduced now in the management side, we introduced a project. Okay, so what is the project? So basically what you do is you say new project, and I call it my chase movie, whatever. Okay, and then what you can do straight away, you can say set it as a current project. Okay, and now you see, now it tells you here, you are viewing chase movie and session project is chase movie. So what does that mean? So there is a way for you to move another project, and then there is a session. Why are they different? So sometimes you want to view shots from another project because you want to bring them in, for example. But as you are building your library of your references for that particular project, you want them to go to the project that you're working on. Okay, because you see, I can just go and work on another project, completely pull references from another project. But it doesn't mean that every time I press save, that's going to go to the project I viewed last. Whenever you press save, it's going to go to the project that you selected as the session project. Okay, and you can just basically like right mouse click on any project and set it to be the session project. And whatever you view, it's whatever you view. And if you click on this icon here, it says navigate up. Oh, that means I'm leaving the project. And project is a subfolder, effectively. I'm leaving the project. I'm going to the root folder. Okay. So now, for example, now that I'm in this project, I can go and say, okay, give me a new reference. I can then import, let's say, this reference. Okay. I'm getting ready for Mexico City, so I'm just watching, using Emilia Perez. All right. And then I'm going to go and say, show me this reference. Hey, great. I want to make it, day for night. Fantastic. Let's do day for night. Fantastic. Bam. That's a very good one. I like it. Okay, great. So I have now my day for night, right? So you see, so and then where is this reference? Well, this reference or any other reference that I'm going to save, like for example, I'm going to say save as reference, and then you go into show references, right? And if I go to select, you see they're all going to appear here. They are going to appear inside your basically project folder. So now you have these subfolders and you're able to do so. By the way, you can, create project from a references, you can copy references, you can move references, you can just click on it and say select it and use it as a reference as well. So you have like basically all these features that you wanted to have to be able to manage lots of references, because that's really going to be, a task. Like you're going to build references first, and then you're going to use these different references and be able to go and create everything else. So now that I have basically, I have this reference, I can just go quickly and I can say Command Y, give me a new version, and I can just go and say, hey, match it now, and let's go and make everything, right, to be day for night. Why not? It's not the best day for night we've ever seen, but you know what? It's a quick one. I can just quickly go and say to my client, how about we do this, right? For example, I'm just going to basically, let me play with it because I'm just enjoying it. So sorry, I have to, let me just indulge in a quickly making everything day for night, right? Okay. So this was kind of the main kind of, work we did was to A, make the installation much simpler, B, to give you the core functionality, C, to improve features of the core functionality. And by the way, this neural network in there is, again, a little bit updated. We keep updating neural network with every release. We have almost every week a new training that we have performed to improve the neural network. We always layer new, references, new we're adding certain things. This is never going to stop. And we did a lot of work to improve the actual process of managing references as well. Okay. So I would say this is an absolutely now I personally think this is now kind of much easier way how to work. It's much easier way how to install. It's much easier to get going and so on. Okay. There is a kind of couple of things. So what we're doing now is because we're now transitioning from the this concept of having a Colourlab creator, which is going to be for all the applications. Now we're going to have a Colourlab for every host application. So this application is called Colourlab for DaVinci Resolve, right? And it's okay. And another thing we had to do, in order for us to really give you the level of service that you require and support and answer those things at the time, and then improve on the licensing system and launch it, ultimately it's increasing our overhead, right? It's ultimately the point is this, if you want to make things better, you just have to pay more, and you just have to hire more people, and that's all cost more. So we're transitioning away from just trying to have this cheap version of Colourlab Creator, which costs $15, and we're going to phase it out. You can still buy it if you're working on Premiere and Final Cut, the existing version. But these new versions, they're going to cost $29 or $250 a year. We prefer annual, it's just simpler, for thousands of reasons. And basically, we're basically transitioning away from that concept of a very cheap kind of software. We don't think that our users are not able to afford $29. Most people we spoke to, they say no, that's not an issue for them. And because of that, then we're going to be able to increase the whole kind of server side, support side, and the new licensing system that's coming next. So this is a kind of a price change as well. And the second thing, we're going to still have a professional version. And also what we're introducing now is a studio version. And the studio version is going to also give you ability to combine Colourlab and FilmLab together. Okay, so the Pro version is going to give you this plus Look Designer and GrainLab. And basically the studio version is going to give you all of that, and it's going to give you FilmLab AI completely as well. And by the way, we're working on a brand new version of FilmLab AI, which we're going to show like a demo of that in Mexico City on May 28th. So I will be there, and we have some incredible people. I'm so excited about meeting all the cinematographers and filmmakers in Mexico who are, very, very excited about all these new improvements we're doing. So we will kind of premiere, interestingly enough, some of these new features there, and then I will be at Cinegear as well, showing some of the new Film Lab stuff as well. So on that note, I want to just open it to our chat. Luis, can you please tell me, you were following chat, is there anything that is, what would be the first thing if you notice anything in chat?
Yes. The first thing would be if these improvements are going to be implemented in Colourlab AI Pro as well.
Yes, they are. But not immediately, right? But within like a next a few weeks, we're gonna have it. So yes, these improvements are to the plugin. We're definitely bringing to Pro. This is probably the only change that you guys are going to see, like as a Pro user. Everything else is going to stay the same.
Okay, we have another question. Can you drag or bring more than one reference at a time?
No, it doesn't. But that's a good feature request. You see, this is very. Let me just write this down. Sorry. Multiple references. Yeah, very good, very good. I'm taking a note. I don't think it's impossible. It's possible to do it.
Okay, so I've got this question that constantly comes up. Should we reset the CDL when making a rematch?
That means your manual CDL. Your number two. Okay, so that's a very good question. And I haven't got a really straight yes or not answer to that. Personally, because that CDL sits in front and it modifies the input to the neural engine, I find that actually it assists in better match, right? Why? Because let's say, for example, this shot here, right? So look, this shot here. So let's say let me just take you through it. So I now basically go like, okay, let me reset the reference so that you see as well what happens. It's very interesting, I like this question as well, and I was really trying to, figure out myself how to best to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go and select first again my Emilia Perez as a reference. Okay, so this is my Emilia Perez. Okay, so look, so what I do now is I say match, all right, and it gives me this look. Okay, so what I do then is I basically go and I embed this particular change, that I want in terms of the brightness, right? And then I embed my CDL and my reference into it. So basically now I say save this as a reference. Okay. Now look what happens. Now if I reset this node and I tell my node, hey, match it, because it had that CDL embedded into its own reference, you don't have to have it manually anymore. But look at what's really interesting. Let's say I then leave this reference in, that adjustment, and I go and rematch again. Well, you know what's going to do? It's going to make it a little darker because, it's still using that same level as a reference. So, so do you understand what I mean? Like, so that particular kind of input, is really useful if you're finding that adjustment is giving you better match, but it is not useful if it's doubling itself to a reference that you already created, if you understand what I mean. So I try sometimes both. If I have a shot that I'm matching and it's not quite getting there, I go and I do a little pre-CDL adjustment and rematch it, because sometimes I just kind of let the neural network sometimes do exactly that, like exactly. So that's a very kind of, good question. I hope it answered it.
And there's this interesting one. When using Colourlab AI for digital remastering, for example, do you use this tool to bring out a color channel that was lost during scanning, for example?
I normally do that in a look designer manually as a pre kind of processing, right? Because you know what this is why we have a subtractive in look designer. So I would probably do something like this. If I now have a situation that let me just see if this one's going to work because I have changed my licenses. So okay, it is. So this is just going to have to be Arilox C. Now, let's say I find myself in a situation. Let me just reset this match first so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and this is log C to log C, and this EDL I'm going to go down. So look, so let's say I have a scan and scan is off, right? So I don't want Colourlab to completely do all of the work because perceptually it's going to be more accurate for me to use my let's say Y channel and magenta channel to a little bit pre-process it, right? To kind of say like, okay, this is kind of where I'm basically getting my missing channel off because the channel is not so much RGB really. You have to understand what the layers that you have scanned, and they haven't necessarily lived in a clear RGB world. So with this one, you kind of get to a more organic and filmic kind of idea to what you want. And then I would go and say, basically, now give me a match or a balance. Let's say I don't want to do a match because it's going to make it all blue. Now give me a match, right? So you see how this basically has then pre-processed that balance that you lost on the layers a little bit, and then the neural network can do the RGB balancing, right? So yeah, that this is at least what some of my clients use Look Designer for. It's very popular inside restoration world for that subtractive thing. And then by the way, this is not like a changing cyan, magenta, yellow as a color inside RGB world. This is really unique for that.
Okay. Then when is this going to be available, and is it going to be back compatible with other versions of Colourlab AI?
So it's available now. We just pushed it to the website, last night or this morning. So basically, if you go to Colourlab.ai, this is going to be the first version, the thing you see, and you can start using it straight away. If you download this version and license this version, it's not going to be compatible with what you had with other versions. So basically, it is going to overwrite, let's say, your previous creator. It's going to overwrite it. So it's not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to use both of them at the same time. And then for pro users, I recommend just hold on to basically this. We're just basically making some final touches to and more improvements to a neural engine for pro, and we're going to release this plugin and like a full pro builds in the following week or so, and then you'll have the same functionality like the DaVinci version, but just as a pro installer. So I would say for pro users this is not really necessary right now.
Someone's asking about how the mid-grade point is programmed in the AI.
Correct. So the mid-gray is always 400, and that's not going to change. The new engine version 4 is going to be working in JPlog2, and JPlog2 has got the same mid-gray. And this is really good mid-gray, by the way, for two reasons. It's a mid-gray in log, and it's mid-gray in Rec 7 and 9 as well, or P3 D65. So that means that my image is always changing around the mid-gray point. It's not moving the mid-gray up and down. And that's the problem you guys have, for example, with DaVinci White Gamut, whose mid-gray is lower. So what happens is your mid-gray has to convert through tonal mapping to sit at 400 for Rec 709. Okay? And what's really cool as well is that 400 mid-gray translates perfectly to HDR nominal mid-gray value 4000 nits. So, like it's just a natural, I would say, point. Why would I move it in my grading space if I can basically, if all my spaces, my output spaces are exactly operating like that? I understand why camera manufacturers are putting down, but I don't understand why the grading spaces would be putting it down. I never understood that. Asus, for example, is also operating 400 or very close to 400 as well. So yeah, there was one thing I never quite understood. Why did DaVinci reduce the value of mid-gray? Simply, I don't understand.
Okay, so how do we get a free trial? Is there a coupon code?
No, there is actually a new trial method. You basically just go to our websites and say, get a free trial. You get 2 weeks. We just activated new trial for this. You're going to first have to sign up and log in. If you have an existing login, just go and log in. Very important. You can't be logged into our website and request trial. You have to start requesting a trial and not being logged in, just in case. But if you have an existing account, you're just basically on the first page where it says, "Hey, can you log in?" Just do that. Let me actually show you, because I was just basically working on that earlier. So let me show you. It's super easy. So because I'm now logged in, it's not. I don't think it's gonna let me do it. Yeah, so it's not gonna work. But basically, you just click here and you say start a free trial. Oh no, actually, you know what? I'm gonna open a new incognito window, so then I'm gonna be locked out. Sorry. Colourlab.ai. Right? And you say start a free trial. We made it as a first button. And there you go. You just enter your email, your password. It's going to be your login. But if you already have an account, you just press login, and then it's going to take you to your login page. You log in, and then you get 2 weeks basically trial. This is another thing. We tested the 30-day trial, and it didn't really work. Nobody really felt like, did they get anything more out of 30 days? So we're back to 2 weeks again.
And what about backward compatibility, Dado? If you have a project in which you were working with the past version of Colourlab AI and you download this new version, will it still work?
Because the plugin is called differently, right? This is called Colourlab 3.4 DVR, right? You understand? You see? So look, if I go to my library and I look at my plugins, look what happens. There is a basically Colourlab AI Creator DVR, and there is a Colourlab AI 3.2. It's not going to be compatible because basically it's a new plugin. It's a new name, and we had to change that name, I'm afraid, because of the licensing. So basically, backward compatibility with existing projects is no, but if you have a pro version, when we release the update, you're going to just have this one called Colourlab AI 3.4, and you're going to have exactly the same functionality with the same name plugin, and that's going to grant you backward compatibility.
And how about the people that have a perpetual Colourlab AI license? Can they activate with the same serial number?
No, this is a new license, and we're going to open as well a perpetual licensing as well. At the moment, it's only monthly and annual. But basically, we're just about, the reason why I haven't been necessarily rushing with the perpetual, because, we have an agreement with B&H to handle our perpetual licenses. So we are, we will open perpetual licensing probably after the holidays, after Mexico. So what's this? First week of June. And then another thing is as well is if you already have a perpetual license, you don't have this license. This is a kind of a new type of Colourlab, but we can upgrade, downgrade, no problem at all. Just get in touch with us, email us at help@Colourlab.ai, and we'll be able to, sort it out for you. No problem at all.
Okay, I think that's it for now.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. I really hope you enjoy this. And, and thank you, first of all, for all your feedback. I can see some of you who actually have, given me very honest and constructive and great feedback to make this, better, and keep it coming. Keep it coming. I want this software to work for you. And I want it to be a help for you, not for any other reason. And I'm really looking forward to see what you're going to create with it. On that note, have a great week and a bank holiday if you live in the US. And next Love Stream is going to be live from Mexico City. So I'll see you there. And it's going to be 1 hour earlier because of the time zone. So just so you know. So we're going to see you Friday, 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Pacific. All right. Take care, everybody, and see you soon. Bye-bye. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye-bye.